Hi, I'm Celia Boothman, founder of LTR Coaching, and I'd like to welcome you to the Inspired Triathletes podcast, where I'll be bringing you stories from female triathletes and taking on topics that are important to women in the sport. Hello and welcome to today's episode. Today I'm here with Coach Kai from Cardiff. Are you from Cardiff?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, you are, because I met you in Cardiff and I'm like,
Yeah.
are you just automatically assumed. We met at the Cardiff Run Show a few weeks ago, and Kai runs some Mum and Me Fit sessions in Cardiff designed to get mums kind of back into training and getting fit again. So she's an expert in pre and postpartum health. So I'm really excited to have you on. I've got loads of questions. We might not get through them all, but we'll see how it goes. First off, if you just tell us a little bit about your background and how you became interested in pre and postpartum fitness.
Yeah, sure. So I am a mum of two. So I've got a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old. And I was already a personal trainer anyway. So I started personal training in 2004. And then when I got pregnant with Frankie in 2017, I just realized that even though I was kind of not an expert in my field, but I suppose I'd already been PTing for 12 years, I had no idea what I should be doing when I was pregnant. And I was kind of like, oh my gosh, so if I don't know what I should be doing and I'm a personal trainer, how on earth do mums know what they should be doing when they're pregnant, especially if they want to keep training? So I kind of researched a little bit about it through my mums, my friends, and I realized that actually most of them gave up exercise when they were pregnant because number one, they were advised by health professionals normally to give up training because nobody really knew what they could advise them to do and not to do. So obviously it was safer just to not do anything. So that was my first kind of link into, right, I need to suss this out a little bit. So I actually then just before I had Frankie, I did my pre and postnatal qualification, which was amazing. So much more to it than I realized as well. So that was kind of like a big step in that direction. And then, so after I'd had Frankie, I returned as a pre and postnatal trainer in the gym that I was in, which was amazing. Straight away, I found that women were very, very eager to get started with me because I think it's also that whole thing of you like somebody in your field who's maybe your age and obviously a woman. And that was a lot of feedback that I received as well, that a lot of women kind of went, well, you know, there's this 21-year-old PT who's saying he's pre and postnatal trained, but number one, he's a guy. Number two, he's younger than I am. And number three, I don't really want to tell him that I need to wee every 5 minutes because people have no idea why, or, you know, it's a bit embarrassing.
Yeah.
So that kind of led me to get really stuck into it. And actually then, probably since I've had Frankie, actually, I don't think I've really trained any men at all, even though before that, it was kind of half-half.
Yeah.
So that was funny. And then when I was pregnant with Cami, so she's only 2.5 now. So in 2021, when I got pregnant with her, I realized that what do people do when they have 2 children? Because when you have one, it's quite easy to ask hubby or a friend or family to look after one child if you want to go to the gym for just an hour. But the numbers become smaller as to who will offer to look after 2.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is ridiculous. There's nothing available for mums then. You know, there are limited. I don't think there are any gyms in Cardiff actually that have a creche attached unless you're paying extra. So I know David Lloyd do, for example, but you're paying over the odds anyway for a membership. So I thought I've got to start something where mums can bring their kids along. So that's how Mum and Me Fit started in 2021. And since then, yeah, it's just blown up really because it's just become, oh God.
Well, there's a need, isn't there, for
Yeah,
it, obviously.
there is a need.
Especially if people are getting that advice, like, don't do anything. You know, I can't believe that's still being told to people now.
I think it's just that unfortunately, from what I've understood, because I link up with a lot of private midwives that run kind of private uh, antenatal classes and that kind of thing. And they said the problem is that within the NHS, they're not allowed to promote paying services. So
Right.
that's therein lies the problem, I think, because
Oh,
in my head I go, I'm just going to go and visit every doctor's surgery around Cardiff, go to Heath Hospital, leave my flyers, my leaflets, but I can't
yeah,
because
yeah,
they're not allowed to promote paying services because obviously then
right.
there's this inequality
So
between.
they just say don't do anything instead of like being able to recommend
Yeah, well, yeah.
anything.
Or they kind of say as long, if there's word of mouth, then, but yeah, but
Mm,
not physically. A GP is not a GP and a midwife are not physically able to promote a paid service. They can only offer anything that's within the NHS or free services for people. So
right.
yeah,
That's interesting.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
I know I remember getting given the advice. It was kind of like if you were doing stuff already, then you can carry on with doing the similar to what you're doing, but don't kind of go crazy. was
yeah,
the,
I
was
think
the
that's
kind of
the
advice I
yeah,
think
I
I
think
got.
that's still the advice that women get given. I think it's kind of like as long as if you're doing what you were doing before, then absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Obviously then you get so many women now who suffer with like PGP or any sort of hip issues or you've got because now we're able to scan more and see more issues and see more things that are going
Mhm.
on. I think women then become obviously a little bit worried about, well, am I going to be able to continue
Yeah.
doing this? So yeah, it's a bit of a minefield, I think, for pregnant women now.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess, like, I suppose the more confident you are in what you know you can do, that's going to help you to know and understand your body. But if you maybe don't have that background in exercise and you just do a bit, you might be a bit more cautious, I'm
Yeah,
assuming. I don't
yeah.
know. Because, yeah, people that do a lot of sport tend to be desperate to get back into
Oh,
it, don't they? Just
100%. Yeah,
almost
100%.
to the other extent.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, there's never, I mean, not that I've heard of, there are not, I don't hear many women who come up to me saying, I wish I'd known about this years ago because from over exercising, I ended up doing this. So you don't normally get that kind of conversation, but I do get a lot of women who say, I still have ab separation and my youngest child is 15, and you think, but that's probably because you went back into exercise without knowing what you should be doing. Because just
Mm,
like all of us, me included, once I'd had a baby, I wanted to get rid of my flabby belly. I wanted to get my body back. So of course, if your only avenue is that you know of classes like body pump or HIIT classes, you're jumping
mm,
back into those, which obviously for a woman who may have pelvic floor issues or ab separation, it's probably the last class she should be jumping back to. But most women don't even know they have ab separation. Some women don't
yeah.
know they have pelvic floor issues until they start jumping or running, and then they realize that obviously they're leaking. But just like my mum, who still doesn't jump on a trampoline because she leaks, but it's again the running commentary is that oh, it's normal because I've had babies. And it's,
Mm,
but it's not normal. It shouldn't be classed as normal. It's just because no one's
yeah.
fixing it at the beginning, and we're not getting that care after having had a baby to be able to go. Actually, leaking is not normal. So
Okay. Yeah, so that sort of leads us into, what are the major physical changes that occur? What kind of things happen when you're in your pregnancy and then after birth, the physical sort of stuff that
yeah,
happens.
so the big thing is that once you become pregnant, you have an active hormone which is running through your body, which is the relaxin hormone. So relaxin basically allows your bones to maneuver themselves to obviously move to be able to make room for this baby. So obviously your ribs kind of come apart, your hips get wider, everything happens. It's almost like going back to when you were a baby and your bones were made up of
Mm,
cartilage. It's kind of doing that whole thing again where relaxing allows your body, your bones basically to become a little bit more supple. So that's a big kind of like warning because obviously then women think, oh gosh, I've become a lot more flexible or I can get
mm,
lower in my squats and things. And it's like, yes, but be aware that that's actually because of the hormone that's running through it. It's not just because you've gotten better or,
Is that also, sorry, just to
no, no,
interrupt,
no.
but is that also, does that hormone also occur like through your menstrual cycle? Am I right in thinking that you get
Oh,
it sort of at a certain time in your cycle,
that I
like
think
towards
that
the end?
I can't confirm
Okay.
or deny that one. Maybe, but
I think
I
there
wouldn't
is a
say
little bit. It's not obviously as much as pregnancy, but I think it might happen in sort of like the third part of your cycle.
got
Is
you.
there's more risk of injury in that part, which is
It
sort of
makes
linked
sense.
into.
Yeah, it does
But
make
anyway, sorry, I
sense.
interrupted you.
No, 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 that's fine. But yeah, that's the big one that occurs straight away. And then
Mm,
you've got obviously just in general, women react to pregnancy differently. So, like I mentioned before, with regards to PGP, which is pelvic girdle pain, some women really struggle with it. Some women literally become immobile, like they cannot walk because it hurts them that much. And the catch 22 is with PGP, movement helps, but obviously
yeah.
you only want to move if it doesn't hurt, of course. So when movement
Mm,
helps, but then you're in that much pain that you don't want to move. So then obviously the pregnant women find themselves in this cycle of like, well, what am I supposed to do? Because it hurts too much to walk, and but I'm being told the movement is good for it, you know.
yeah.
So, um, and then yeah, it's just I think with regards to pregnancy, it's just the obvious, you know, like we're obviously we're growing a baby inside us. So I think the obvious things like all your organs kind of shift upwards, which is why we always
Mm,
say, like, women don't need to drink that much or eat that much, and suddenly they're full, or suddenly they need the toilet, because obviously your baby's taking up the majority of the space that your stomach, your diaphragm, all of that was taken up before. And then depending on who you are, depends on whether you end up kind of getting any aches, pains, whether it be ankles, joints, knees, all of that kind of thing, which again, it's
mm,
very personal. Some people really struggle. Some people kind of, pregnancy can be a breeze for them and they really enjoy it. Um,
mm.
so it's a bit varied. And then postpartum, then you've got your obvious ones, which, well, obvious, I say obvious as if everybody knows about
It's obvious for you, yeah.
me. So ab separation is the big one. So around
Yeah.
40% of women don't suffer from it. So you're looking at 50 to 60% of women that actually do end up with some sort of ab separation. So
Mm,
some people know it as ab separation, some people know it as diastasis recti. So it's just basically where obviously your abs have separated to give room for the baby. So what happens is you've got this piece of tissue that connects your abs, which is called your linea alba, and that just stretches like a balloon would. The more you blow it up, it
mm,
just stretches and stretches. So essentially, what's happened is after you've had a baby, some women it just kind of comes back together naturally, which is great. But some women, it's just almost past that elasticity level where it just
right.
needs a bit more help to come back together. Now, if you think again, naturally, a woman will go, I need to do loads of sit ups because I need to get my body back and I need
Mm,
to get rid of my belly. Well, if my abs are far apart from each other and all I've got is this piece of tissue that's connecting them, you've essentially got nothing then protecting your organs, because
mm,
your abs, like your rib cage, protect your organs. So then this is where women are really, really susceptible to getting hernias, because suddenly
mm,
you're pushing, like a sit up is obviously a repetitive movement,
yeah.
and you're putting too much pressure on that essentially piece of material that's connecting your abs. So it can be quite dangerous for women to jump back into exercise not knowing that they've got this issue. um so that's probably the biggest one that I find. Pelvic girdle pain, luckily, a lot of women, it does seem to go after they've had the baby. So it seems to be something that's more related to pregnancy and then it
Right.
seems to disappear. But pelvic girdle pain then leads to also things like sciatica, because it's just
Okay.
where your body's shifting,
So
everything.
is it just pressing on the nerves or something then, is it?
Exactly. You've got, yeah,
Okay.
exactly that. You've got different parts of your body then that are pressing on parts that they weren't before and now they are. So
Yeah.
reason it can lead to sciatica. Um,
Okay.
yeah, and so
So how do you know if you've got like ab separation? Is that because you say that a lot of people don't know? Like I wouldn't have
yeah,
known
so
if I
I
hadn't
check
known.
every single mum that comes to my mum and me fit class. I check them. So
Mm,
every single new person that walks in, that's the first thing I do. and we kind of then check it every 4 to 6 weeks. I will
Okay.
refer straight away anybody who's got more than a four-finger gap. So for me, anybody whose
Mm,
separation is bigger than that, I say, look, I think you're better off going and booking in with a women's health physio. So we're quite
mm,
lucky now in Cardiff. We've actually got a thing now called Mummy MOT. So it's a
okay.
group of women who have taken basically done this qualification of Mummy MOT. They are physios in general. So women's health physio, you'll probably find was a physio anyway, and then has specialised in women's health as well. But of
Yeah.
course, there's a cost. So it's just
Yeah.
annoying because anybody who you're referring to, you know that for an initial consultation, you're looking at 80 to £100 straight away, which for
Right.
a mum on a maternity leave,
Yeah, it's not
it's not ideal.
really accessible for a lot of
Yeah. I
people, is
mean,
it?
some women I do kind of go, look, if you're willing to push, go back to your GP, go back to your doctor and say, I've got a forfeit. I know I've got a severe abscess.
Mm,
I need to be seen. And hopefully then they'll get through the system that way. But
mm.
a lot of these women just want to get it sorted as soon as possible. And
Yeah,
in
yeah.
some cases, if you've got a bigger gap than 4 fingers wide, you do need surgery.
Right.
Because it is a case of actually doing
Getting it
something
back
to help it
together.
come back together. Yeah.
Yeah.
But less than 4 fingers is always fixable. So
Yeah.
anything less than that is always fine. But again, it's knowing what exercises to do, what exercises not to do, what makes it worse, what makes it better. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, unless you've seen somebody like myself or any other PT who knows what they're looking for, you don't know, like you
You're
said.
just in the
Just
dark.
don't
So
know.
is it a physical exam you just sort of press on
Yeah,
the
so it's just
abdomen,
literally
or
I
how
get
do you?
women to lie down on the floor and you almost go into doing like a sit up. So I get them to lie either with
Okay.
their legs flat or their knees up, so feet flat on the floor, knees bent. And I just say, just raise your head as if you're doing a sit up. And then straight
Mm.
away, then I can just press kind of all the way down. So I normally run a finger down the middle,
Yeah.
and I can always feel then for both sides. You can feel the sides of the abs
Okay.
either side, and it's just kind of gauging. Most
Yeah.
people, I'll generally find, have about 2.5 finger gap if they're quite newly
Mm.
postpartum, because again, remember, you're still recovering for a long, long time. And this is where women don't give themselves that recovery time. And it makes me
No.
laugh actually how, we kind of go, so if you had, I don't know, any sort of surgery that involved, like a liver, anything to do with your organs, you'd kind of go bed
Yeah.
rest for 6 weeks, don't do
Mm.
anything. Whereas a woman can come home from having had a C-section 24 hours later and is expected to pick up and look after another baby that may be at
Yeah.
home or a toddler. And it blows my mind. I think there's a reel at the moment apparently about a leaflet that they send home to men after they've had a vasectomy. And it's
Okay.
and it's like, look after yourself, take care, and we're like,
Yeah.
oh, women don't even get a leaflet when they come out of hospital
Oh,
after
I never
had a
got one.
baby. So it's just insane, isn't it? But yeah, it is
Mm.
unfortunately just almost respecting the fact that you've and your body has undergone trauma. Whichever way we
Mm.
want to look at it. I mean, we make it all sound nice and saying we've just had a baby and look at this wonderful thing,
Mm.
birth. But your body, regardless of your delivery, your body has undergone trauma because it's doing something that is shocked its
It's
system.
huge, isn't
Yeah,
it? Yeah, it's huge, and all the time before as well. It's like,
yeah,
you've had 9 months of growing a baby inside you, and then you give birth, which is a massive, it's tiring, it's hard. I
yeah.
had both style of birth, so I had a C-section and then I had a natural birth. So I've kind of experienced both, and I can say that, yeah, they both have their challenges,
Of course they
definitely,
do. Yeah.
from that. And I think we do, the first time I was like, right, they've said 6 weeks. After I'm off. And get back into things after 6 weeks.
100%. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people force or put, they just want to get fit and help. They feel like well, for me anyway, I felt like I've spent 9 months, just not
Yeah.
doing what I wanted to do. And then it's kind of hard
Well,
to,
it's the mental health aspect as well, isn't it? Because
yes,
obviously you're looking at you know, for me, it's funny actually, because I remember people saying to me, "Oh, you're going to buy one of those buggies that you can run with your baby," and I was like, "Absolutely not. My
Yeah, I didn't, to be
exercise is
honest.
getting away from my children. Like, I need
Yeah.
exercise for an hour to myself in my own little bubble." And
Yeah.
it's funny, isn't it? Like it's quite ironic, really. I run these mum and me fit classes. I would never have attended one if it was not,
Right.
because it again. No, I
You
will
wanted to get your headspace when you did your exercise. Yeah. Yeah.
again. You know, whether that would have been the case, I don't know, because with 2 children, again, 3 children, 4 children,
Mhm.
how do people manage to do that? It's insane, you know, how do
Yeah.
you know, do so I suppose maybe had I not been able to go to the gym because it was too hard to leave 2 kids with my husband, then maybe I would have found myself at one of these classes, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, it depends on people's circumstances totally,
yeah,
because I had my mum lives down the road and she was very supportive. She would mind the kids for an hour or something whilst I went off and ran or cycled or whatever. And then we'd go to the pool together, we'd swap, go to the baby pool. So I had a really nice
yeah,
support
yeah,
system, but I know a lot of people don't. And I've got a friend who had twins, and it was like that, you're talking about having two children or having two, twins
yeah,
as well is like double because they're the same age. She was struggling like quite a lot, I think, in the early stages. She's really into mountain biking, and it was just she couldn't do what she
no,
wanted to do. So it is really tough for people. But to
yeah,
get that like exercise, for your mental health is really important. And if you do need that time away, I'd say try and organize it, because there
and
is this sort of like, oh, we'll try and fit it in with the child, like people do turbo sessions, they put their children on the floor or whatever, you see it all the time. And I think that's great, but it also isn't because you're still in that
yeah.
I'm a carer, I'm looking after someone role.
Yeah, 100%. Well, funnily enough, we were talking about this actually in the classes, and we were saying that even in that situation, even though the classes, you're still bringing your child along, the mums were saying the difference is when they're at home trying to do a class, whether it be a YouTube class, something they've done themselves, once the baby cries or needs attention, they were like, it's game over. Because
Yeah.
whether that happens 10 minutes into their workout or 25, you're then kind of like, oh, I can't be bothered.
Mm.
Like, you know, whereas at least in my class, they feed the baby if they need feeding, but then obviously I'm still carrying on with the others. So then
Yeah.
they kind of say it's a lot more like they're more likely to just put the baby down and kind of go, right, let me just catch up
Yeah,
with
carry on.
you know,
Yeah.
and you just carry on. And I feel there's so much in that as well that obviously
Yeah.
I feel like anything that would happen at home, you know, whether it be even the doorbell ringing or anything, your phone going, you're just going to stop
Mm.
what you're doing. And then it's very, very hard to get yourself out of that kind of like,
Yeah.
"Oh, well, I've stopped now."
Like frustration as well, and
Yeah.
like irritation. Whereas when you're in a group and you can see everyone else is in the same situation, it must be really nice to have that feedback. So yeah, maybe triathletes should do like mum and me sessions.
Honestly.
I don't know how it would work, but yeah, it's a bit difficult. You have to have like a baby on, take the
Yeah. Like a childminder.
bikes or something. I don't really
Yeah,
know
yeah,
how
yeah,
it
yeah.
works.
You'd have to do like relays so that different people are doing
Yeah,
whilst we're
I mean,
swimming.
with running,
Mums
people
looking
do.
after
Oh yeah, yeah, running people do manage, don't
them.
they? And
Yeah.
you could do that in the pool if you got friends together who wanted to swim. You could kind of do that in the pool, I
Yeah,
guess.
100%.
There's ways of doing it, but yeah, it is very difficult.
Yeah.
So, just back to kind of like during pregnancy, if you are training, and you're wanting to kind of maintain your fit, because you can only maintain really your fitness during pregnancy, or maintain some bit of fitness. Is there anything to look out for, or anything that people should be aware of that could be a red flag, or
Well,
something that
the biggest thing that I always say to people is just stop doing things like sit-ups. And the
mm,
only main reason, and it's actually contrary to belief. So a lot of people think that you're supposed to stop doing ab exercises because of the baby. It's not actually so much because of the baby. It's actually because where the baby sits, like when you're pregnant, one of your main arteries that runs oxygenated blood to your heart can become, basically it can become squeezed or kind of restricted when you do things like sit-ups, because you're kind of obviously coming into like sit-ups, crunches, that kind of thing. You're coming into that position. Now, when
Yeah.
you're pregnant, as you will know as well, Celia, your body doesn't really care about you anymore. It just cares about growing
Mm.
this baby, especially in the first
Yeah.
trimester. So I often hear of mums that say, obviously, lack of energy. They get ill all the time. Like we end up with colds, coughs, all of these kind of things, because
Mm.
our immune system has kind of gone, sorry, this is what we're working on now. And hence the reason why after the first 12 weeks, we generally find there's an uplift in energy. We feel we feel better because it's done the hard work. It's kind of made sure that fetus becomes a baby, if you like. And then hence the
Mm.
reason then your second trimester seems to go a bit more swimmingly, because now you're growing the baby. You're not making something become a baby. So
Mm.
a lot of the time when people go, why shouldn't I do ab exercises? I'm like, well, it's actually because if you're going to put pressure on your body like that, which already isn't worrying about you anymore, you can end up essentially, um, it's going to sound really dramatic, but you can end up starving your body of oxygen, because you're doing
Okay.
this, your body is sending everything it can to the baby. Suddenly, you end up lightheaded. You're doing things that you shouldn't be doing, essentially. So it's just about,
Mm.
so abs is one of those things that we kind of go, stop with the sit ups and the
No.
crunches and
Yeah.
that kind of thing from when you find out you're pregnant. But again, the problem with anything is that obviously any man, any woman will never do research on a pregnant woman. It will
Mm.
never
Yeah.
really exist, because we can't. There is no
Mm.
there are not enough pregnant women who will sign themselves up to be researched on with regards to, let's do a load of sit-ups and see if any of you end up like
Yeah.
that. It's just not going to happen. So unfortunately, even the information that I'm giving you right now is obviously based off somebody looking at the anatomy of a woman, looking at what we
Mm.
do when we're pregnant, looking at where your different veins, arteries, your heart, how the body is working, and just going, due to that, the result is do
Logically.
not do
Yeah.
sit-ups. And I've known, as I'm sure you do, and I'm sure everyone does, know women who haven't found out they're pregnant till they're 5 months, 6 months pregnant. And
Mm.
so some of them, those women have been doing sit up. They've been smoking, drinking,
Mm.
doing sit up, doing everything
Yeah.
they were doing normally, and their baby comes out perfectly fine. But again,
Mm.
there aren't enough of those situations, or either situations where we can say it's safe to do. So it's one of those things
Mm.
that we kind of go, due to the physiological changes that are happening, due to women's physiological, you know, everything,
Makeup. Yeah.
make a decision to not. And I think that's the big thing. Like you asked, are there any not to do's in pregnancy? Unfortunately, there will never be enough research for us to say
No.
this is
No. Yeah.
categorically no, this is categorically yes. It is just
Mm.
kind of going, how do I feel? Know that obviously any sort of strength training is going to benefit you anyway, because you want to stay
Yeah.
strong, so that as a mum, then, I mean, mum life is hard. Car seats are heavy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anybody who says to me, "Oh, I shouldn't be doing strength training," I'm like, "Why would you not?" I don't.
Mm.
It's tiring. Rocking a baby to sleep for 40 minutes. It's
Mm.
exhausting. Like you want to be fit and strong to be able to be a mum.
Yeah.
However, don't push
Yeah.
it. Don't be
Don't be.
a personal best.
Don't go crazy. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
And that same thing with
with like ab exercises, a plank would. I was thinking like
mm,
a plank would be like a safer
yeah,
exercise. You wouldn't
100%.
be
Yeah.
lifting it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Planks, side planks, bird dogs, so where you're on your hands and knees
Yeah.
and you lift one, yeah, things like that. Those are absolutely fine, because you're not putting
Mm.
pressure. And then obviously look at avoiding. Um, so you can't stop ab separation from happening, because it's one of those psychological, physiological things that will just happen depending on your body. But you can
Yeah.
reduce the risk of it. So obviously, if you can see that
Mm.
you're starting to cone, you would avoid think any exercise that
Yeah.
you're doing that you can see that kind of happening. Um,
Yeah.
and I'd say that that's kind of just a given, really. Um,
Okay.
watch those kind of things.
Okay. So yeah, it sounds like, and there's someone that I follow who's she's a climber actually, and she climbed all through, she's really good at climbing, and she sort of followed her pregnancy and said, this is what I'm doing, and was posting about what she was doing and things. And some people get upset, don't they, about, oh, you shouldn't be doing this and you shouldn't be doing that. But because she's got such good body awareness
Yeah.
and she understands like how to, what feels right for her. Like, she ended up getting a child's harness which goes over your shoulders, and do like a full body harness rather than just around the pelvis, so that she could carry on climbing, because she
Oh,
was like, this feels better. And I was like, that's really the way she just thought outside of the box, but she
yeah.
listened to her body as well, to
Yeah.
kind of like go, okay, this is going to work, and I know that that will help me. And
Yeah.
I modified everything
Yeah,
basically.
I think
So
that's it, isn't it? I think where we get into dangerous categories is where, and for me as a PT, I think where I see women who are kind of going, oh, can I, what should I be doing about my nutrition and things when I'm pregnant? And I'm like,
mm,
no diet. Like if you're looking at
yeah.
dieting, you're on the wrong, or like people who are still going to the gym because they're worried about obviously putting on too much weight during pregnancy.
Mm,
Things like that we need to be aware of and just be really mindful that some women really struggle with that side of things. And I think that's probably where we're edging on why you shouldn't train, just because
yeah.
the goal is not to lose weight whilst you're pregnant. The goal is not to get
No.
fitter or stronger. The goal is just to make sure that 9 months is a long time if you don't end up training. If you've been training for a long time,
Mm,
that's a long period of time to then lose a lot of what you will have built up, whether it be your strength, whether it be your fitness beforehand. So why would you not just keep it up? And
mm,
like we said, we're not saying you need to be looking at doing any personal bests in anything, but you should definitely keep it up.
yeah. I think it's a difficult one for people to get their head around, because it is like, for your whole life so far, you've been, especially if you're performing at a high level, that's what your life's been about. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I can't do this the same way anymore. And I suppose it happens gradually, but it's still like a massive shock to your system the first time round, especially. Like the second time was totally different for me, because I was like, okay, I don't mind. I know I'm going to get fit again. I didn't run till as late in my pregnancy. I was much more relaxed about it all, and just everything went a lot better. But I know that first time mums, it's scary, isn't it? It's like,
100%, yeah,
who am I becoming? What's happening to me?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Hmm. Okay, so if people are trying to like reintroduce fitness, if we is it okay, can you kind of look at it through a triathlon lens? So like,
Yeah.
if we're looking at swim, bike, run, what would be best to start with, do you think, if people are coming back to
Post
training?
pregnancy or
Yeah, if they've managed to kind of keep up. I mean, obviously, like, people are not going to be able to cycle and run all the way up through. Probably you can swim like most of the way through your
yeah, you can swim. So
pregnancy.
cycling is a funny one. So cycling, if you look at it, the thing we always say about is the handlebars, positioning of the handlebars. Because obviously
Okay.
a lot of cyclists, if you're low down in that
Yeah.
position, essentially you could be saying you're in that kind of ab sit up crunch
Squashing
position.
the yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's where we kind of just say, just raise the handlebars. Now, obviously, you say that
Mm.
to a road cyclist, they'll probably look at you like, "No, I'm not going to look like I'm, what do you want me to put a basket on the front as well, and it's probably not
Yeah.
really their idea of cycling, but it is one of those adaptations that I will always say to people if you're cycling, even spin classes, that kind of thing. I'll say, just raise your handlebars so that you're now going from that kind of almost horizontal position to sitting up more
Mm.
vertically. Running, I kind of I leave that to the individual. I think running is one of
Mm.
those things that if you are able to keep running until literally the day you give birth, I say, hey, crack on. Your
Mm,
body will tell you if you cannot run anymore. And some
mm,
people just don't like the feeling. Some people don't like
mm,
running, thinking, oh gosh, I've got this baby inside, you know, and it just doesn't
yeah.
feel comfortable. But some people absolutely love it, and they will carry on doing it all the way through. And I don't think, again, there's no research that I know of that says that you should stop at any point.
No.
I think it's just one of those things that, again, if you feel like you've got too much pressure, you're feeling, you know, like bearing down, you're feeling any sort of pelvic girdle pain, then of course, yeah, reduce what you're doing, maybe stop what you're doing at that point. But I don't think it's anything that you should ever stop. Swimming is a great one.
Mm,
Swimming will always be, but for anything, you know, we look at rehab
mm,
for any sort of injury, swimming is up there, you know, because
yeah.
it's just that fact of non-gravity. Obviously, it's just perfect for any sort of rehab. So why wouldn't it be for pregnancy as well?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the running, like, for me, the first time round, I ran till, I don't know, I think it was about 7 or 8 months, and
Mm.
then I got like, I'm just not enjoying it anymore. It
Yeah,
feels
yeah,
uncomfortable, and so I just stopped.
yeah,
And then the second time round, I just didn't do. I don't think I ran that much actually. I was just like, I'll just walk.
yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
feel the need that time, but it is a nice. Was nice because I would run with the women in the club and things, and yeah, it was a good thing to do, definitely.
Uh,
So yeah, no, and then coming back in, you would reintroduce sort of.
Yeah, running is one of those things. First of all, just leave it for a little while. I think there are too
Mm,
many, again, probably runners, or people
mm,
who have done running kind of go, oh, let me just try a gentle 5K, and then they run for 5 minutes, realize, you know, they basically urinated all the way down the road, you know, so they're
oh
kind of
God,
like, right, I need to turn around and
yeah.
go. And I think it's that kind of thing, is kind of understanding your pelvic floor. Your
Yeah.
pelvic floor will be the biggest indication as to when you should return to running and for how long you can run. Time that with things like pelvic girdle pain, because that will come apparent after a little while of running. So I think it's one
Mm,
of those things that I've managed to do, you know, a 15, 20-minute run, check. No needing to urinate all the time. Okay, brilliant. Then it's kind of going, right, at what point am I starting to ache? And what are those aches? Are those aches normal aches? Like, you know, I don't know, like any kind of shin splint kind of aches, that kind of thing. Okay, well, that's just your kind of rest, recover, whatever. Is it a hip? Right, I've not had that before. Okay, that's probably linked to having had a baby. Right, let's maybe not try and do a 10K next week. Let's try and keep stick to
mm,
5Ks for a good few months, you know. And it's kind of just pacing it, really. I would
mm,
say go back to your couch to 5K, especially for somebody who's been used to running, because you're just going to get bored very, very quickly. But
yeah.
I would say it is one of those things you need to test the impact. You need to be able to see how far or for how long you can go. And I have to say, even not even being a runner myself, I remember the first time. So I do a lot of skipping now.
Okay.
I remember the first time I did skipping, I did it, and then I was like, oh, that was all right. And then literally about 30 seconds after I'd stopped, I was like, oh my God, no, that's not okay. And it was funny how even though it wasn't during, so obviously
Yeah.
my body had kind of gone, right, I'm skipping, I need to keep everything
Yeah.
tight. And it was only after I'd finished that then my body went, that was not okay. You cannot do that for long periods of time at the moment. So then again,
Right.
even with that, I kind of went, right, whoa, I need to rein it back in a bit, and, you know, and kind of do
Yeah.
little bouts at a time. So it is, but again, it's making women understand that leaking is not normal, you know? And I think the reason
Yeah.
people would go back to running and go, oh, it's fine, is if they think, well, I've had a baby, of course I leak. No, it's not fine. Get your
No.
floor
There
sorted
is.
and then go back
It's
to it.
like a joke, isn't it? It's kind of like, oh yeah, that's normal, and yeah, you're right. It's like just accepted, and it shouldn't be because yeah,
Well,
we
Tenor
shouldn't
have
be.
even jumped on it. We have to pay for these Tenor ladies
Yeah.
because they have now jumped on the back of, this isn't normal. We can make money off it. Let's make
Yeah.
people pay for this and tell them it's not normal. That it is
So
normal.
with
Sorry.
so with that, that's a a pelvic floor issue. So pelvic
Yes,
floor
pelvic floor.
exercises
Yes,
are something that we should be doing, I've
100%.
heard, on a
That
regular
that
basis.
should be the leaflet. That should be the leaflet that we get sent home with
I
after
should
having.
be doing it now.
Yeah, pelvic floor exercises are the one, I think, and learning how to breathe again. So what we do
Okay.
as well, this is a big thing that I concentrate on with the mums in my class actually, is that as you get more pregnant, you end up going from breathing through your diaphragm to shallow breathing, we call
Oh,
it,
yeah.
because again, you've got no room. So you're not,
Mm.
so people go, oh, I've become really unfit. I'm so breathless. And I'm like, kind of, but it's actually not because you've become unfit. It's just because you're not using your diaphragm anymore. You're just breathing from the top of your lungs essentially. So obviously you
Okay.
become breathless a lot quicker. So it's showing women how to breathe through their diaphragm again. And
Yeah.
some people they find it really hard. Like I had a client this morning and we must have been practicing it for about 10 minutes. And then I was like, right,
Mm.
just go home. You're getting frustrated now. Just go home and keep practicing. But it's about that kind of like having your hands around your waist and breathing in so that you feel that your hands are
Mm.
physically coming away, like your stomach is filling with air
Yeah.
and you feel your
Like proper belly breaths.
proper
Yeah.
belly breaths.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but we don't know how to do that after we've had a baby because again, we've had
No.
maybe not 9 months because your baby's not that big at that, but you've had about 3 or 4 months where you're shallow breathing. You're not using your diaphragm. So I think that's
Yeah, and then you're probably anxious as well because you've just had a
yeah,
baby. So,
yeah,
there's going to be that's impacting your
yeah. And
breathing
I
as
think that would
well.
probably have a big impact, especially on runners, because breathing is really
Mm.
important. How you breathe, it's really important when you're running. So it's probably one of those things they need to, learn.
Yeah, that's really good. I'd never thought about that actually, about the breathing aspect of things, but I think, yeah, something that we don't always think about as being that
Yeah,
important, but it's like one of the major, we breathe so many times a day. It's really important to get, like, for your nervous system and everything. It's just amazing. So
yeah,
yeah, people need to breathe properly. I
yeah, yeah.
like that advice. That's good. So breathing and pelvic floor, we've got to
Breathe
nail those.
pelvic floor. I'd probably say the two.
Tie them in together as well, couldn't you?
Yeah,
Maybe.
absolutely. But then I think
Mm.
with regards to like swimming, cycling, running, I don't think running will be the highest impact exercise of the
Mm.
three. So running's probably the one that you need to probably tread with caution, as to returning back to. Swimming, obviously, I feel like it's one of those things you can probably get back in the water very quickly after having had a baby
Yeah.
because it'll help. Cycling,
Yeah, as long as you've not had a C-section and you've got scarring or anything.
and then
Yeah.
section similar, but probably the other way, as long as you've not had any tears or anything like that. That's
Yeah,
probably
that's
where the
true.
travel issue comes into it. So
Yeah, on a
C-section is
bike.
probably more your swimming, your natural delivery is probably more your cycling, and kind of
Yeah.
but again, natural delivery is probably also your running because a C-section, you
Mm.
don't find many women have got that much of a pelvic floor issue. Um,
Yeah.
see they've had a baby in a different way, albeit that your
Yeah.
pelvic floor has been tested through pregnancy. So it's not one to disregard,
No.
but it won't be as poignant as somebody who's had a natural delivery.
Yeah, it's completely different, the two
Mm.
things, I would say, and it's like major surgery for a C-section, so you kind of like, I remember having, because I got married like a week after I had my baby, and
Wow.
with the C-section, and it was a very casual wedding, but we did like a three-legged race
Oh God.
in in the woods, and everyone was like, "Oh, we want you to do this three-legged race." So they picked people to come with me, and I remember sort of like hobbling. To, we would walk running, but they kind of like wanted to, let me join in with all the races
But
because
it's
I
funny, isn't it? But because
obviously
you're
couldn't.
at your wedding, it's almost like out of sight, out of mind. Whereas had you not been getting married, you're lying on your sofa, with they're probably suddenly, if you'd said, I'm going to do a three-legged race,
Yeah, they'd be
like,
like, "What are you
on
doing
about.
that
Yeah.
for?"
It's almost like, and that's the problem again. I think because as
Yeah,
mums, we're expected to just keep going and get up, and then you're toddling,
yeah,
take him to school the next day, so you take him to school. People forget what you've been through. Whereas I think if it was almost like the standard, after a woman has had a baby, she has to lie down on the sofa for 6 weeks and be weighted on hand and foot. I reckon
Oh,
the expectation of what that woman is supposed to do within the 6 weeks would be a hell of a lot less than what we're expected to do now.
yeah. I don't know if I could have done that though, to be
No,
honest.
I couldn't. I mean, just the fact I couldn't drive for 3
Uh,
weeks drove me mad after having a C-section.
mm. I did hear someone talking about in some country, I can't remember where it is, um, maybe a Nordic country or something like that. They have women that come round, like when women have given birth, they actually have someone that comes into the house and does that. They help the new mum out. They have like a, I don't know, 3 weeks or something like that, where they have the support of someone else who's going to look after their child and, like just, yeah, basically support them, which
Yeah,
is what we really need, isn't it? As
100%.
it's, and especially if you've got other children that you're trying to deal with as well. I mean, it's hard. It's
Yeah.
really hard, and especially and you're breastfeed. If you're breastfeeding, you're like, I remember sitting there going, "Well, I can't do anything now." It's nice if someone can bring you a cup of tea or something like that.
Yeah,
We do
yeah.
need that as well. Okay. Yeah. So we talked a little bit about like mental health and you talked a little bit about nutrition and not wanting to lose weight. So, what should we be aiming for really throughout our pregnancy and afterwards? What are we looking to do?
Right, well, this one again is taken with a pinch of salt because what you're looking to do and what ends up happening are 2 completely
Yeah.
different things. The biggest thing I always say to my mums is just make sure you're getting good food. And I
Mhm.
I never limit it. I never say, 150 grams of protein. Blah, blah, blah. No,
Yeah.
at this point, you're just looking at having good food. But
Yeah.
again, unfortunately, it depends on the network that you've got around you. Like
Mhm.
if you've got somebody who, whilst you're pregnant, absolutely knackered, you're 8 months pregnant, you've got a toddler that you're looking after,
Mhm.
you know, be it all by yourself or be it because your partner works till 6 p.m., 7 p.m. every day, the last thing you want to think about is cooking yourself
That's
a
what you
black
cook
bowl.
for.
It's just not
Yeah.
going to happen. So I think it's just one of those things that you kind of go, almost just have in your house good food so that you're not just picking at
Mm.
snacky stuff that gives you zero energy and isn't going to help you, especially because, again, coming back to that whole your body doesn't care about you anymore. Anything that has any nutritional value, your body's just shunting towards the baby anyway, so your body ends up
Mm.
basically left with the crap that's left
Mm.
over. So, if anything, you need to almost eat so much better than you were before you
Mm.
were pregnant because you need your body to also pass some of that through to you rather than just passing it down to the baby.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's probably the only advice I give mums especially when they're pregnant. After they've had the
Mm.
baby, I always just talk about, first of all, not being tough on yourself. I
Mm.
hear of so many women who kind of go, "Oh, it's just I had zero sleep, and then all I've eaten is this whole bar of Cadbury's," and I'm like, "Well,
Mm.
you're knackered, like you're
Mm.
absolutely shattered. You've had no sleep. You're nap trapped. Your baby's cluster feeding today. It hasn't left your boob for like the last 5 hours." I kind of I get it.
Mm.
I'll be the first one to say I'm not going to say to a woman then, "Oh, try and get your chicken and veg in," because
Yeah.
you want to lump me with a bar of dairy milk. But I think it's just kind of, again, if if even if it's a day that you kind of say to hubby, right, come on, can you make a massive lasagna and then just
Mm.
portion it off, whack it in the fridge so that then at least it's a 2-minute microwave job rather than a
Yeah.
20-minute cook and prepare job. Um,
Mm.
but again, I don't talk about dieting or limiting
Mm.
anything. I think it's just at that point, it's just kind of getting through it and understanding that you're gonna be hungry. There's a nice myth that says that if you're breastfeeding, you usually lose more weight, which is fine if you're also not eating more, which I found with breastfeeding, I'm just
Mm.
constantly hungry.
I was
So,
hungry, yeah, a lot,
so
yeah.
I was like, well, I'm, all these calories I'm supposed to be losing, I'm taking double that in anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But I just think it's just that self-care kind of thing, and it's just
Yeah, we don't wanna be, like, beating ourselves over the head
no.
about that's yeah, it's the last thing you want when you've got a new
Yeah,
baby is to
yeah,
be giving yourself a hard time. It's not good for us.
yeah. But then I
Um,
think it
but
is on making sure that you have people around you that are looking after that aspect of it for
yeah,
you know, and kind
yeah,
of
because
making
it's
sure
good
that people
if
are
you can eat well, isn't it? Because
yeah,
it
of
makes you feel
course.
better,
Yeah, of
but,
course. And
so
you're
if you
probably
can
gonna
have the
live for
help.
longer. You know, I always
Yeah,
this joke with people that they're like, "Oh, you know, I have a McDonald's a week." And I'm like, "Look, I'd love a McDonald's a week." But I'm like, the problem with me having McDonald's is I have a McDonald's and then 2 hours later I'm hungry again because for
yeah,
me, they are
yeah, it doesn't
literally the calories are, you know, it's a complete
yeah,
waste of calories because it's just not
mm,
nutritional at all. So then I still need to eat a meal 2 hours later. Whereas
yeah.
if I eat a good meal, I know I'm not gonna need to eat for a few hours. So I think it's just aligning that.
Yeah, it's knowing like what's good for you and what are good choices for you and what you can actually manage as well and
Yeah.
implement in your life because everyone as we said earlier, everyone's life's different and it
Uh,
varies the amount of support you've got and who can help you. And if anyone knows any new mums, dropping off some food, some nice food to them is probably a good idea.
100%. 100%.
Okay. So yeah, just we'll try and wrap up now.
Okay.
So if you just have you got any success stories from people that have come to you and kind of like had a really positive experience that, they've not they've they've turned things around, maybe been a little bit
Yeah, so I
unhappy.
think the biggest thing I always say this to my mums actually who come up to me and say, "Oh my God, Kai, thanks to you, I've lost this much weight, or I feel like this, or I feel like that." And I'm like, this isn't thanks to me. I say I might
Mm,
have been the catalyst, but I say, funnily enough, once you start doing any sort of exercise, it's a snowball effect. And I always
yeah.
say that my mum's come to my class. Now, my classes are designed around nap times. So I have them
Okay.
specifically from 9:30 to 11 a.m. because
Yeah.
there are some mums that can do 9:30 because they need that, the babies need sleep after. There's some mums that there's, vice versa, whatever. My classes vary
Yeah.
through that time. Now, if they didn't come to that class, chances are they'd be meeting somebody for a coffee and a cake.
Mm,
And as we get into winter, and especially well, last week, I mean, today we've been blessed because the last week has been horrendous.
yeah.
You're not going to go for a walk. Like there is zero
No.
chance between now and February that a new mum is going to go, oh, it's pissing it down. Let me go for a tram walk with my kid and grab a coffee on the way. You're just going to go and
Yeah.
sit in a coffee shop and you're going to sit in there. A, not walking, so you're not doing any steps, you're not moving, and B, you're probably eating crap because let's be honest,
Mm,
there's nothing of good nutritional value normally in a coffee shop that we go and sit in.
mm,
So they're coming to my class. So then, because they feel good after they've come to my class, they go home and they actually make better choices as to the food that they're going to eat
mm,
because they've just done exercise. And I always feel that's the case. Like, you'll never find somebody smashes out a workout or goes for a run and then comes home and eats crap because it's just not in
mm.
your endorphins are high. You're just not in that state of mind. So I'm like,
Yeah.
and then it kind of then carries on through. So I'm like, yes, okay, thank me for the class. I love that you're getting what you are out of it, but actually, it's just a catalyst. And I think
Mm.
those are always my success stories with my mums in that they've used the class to get them back to where they want to be.
Yeah.
It's not because of the class, like I'd love to say that, yes, Mary comes.
Well, you're facilitating it, aren't you? So
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
like the springboard, like you say, into
Yeah,
to them
yeah,
then making those choices for themselves.
yeah,
And people need that, it
yeah.
definitely makes a difference to people to have that support and the yeah, just feeling like someone's got your back and that you're
Uh,
doing something good for yourself.
Yeah,
So
100%. I think the biggest thing as well, and don't get me wrong, Celia, like some of the classes, we've gotten very dark in them. We've ended up talking about postnatal depression. We've ended up,
mm,
because some of these women are turning up and they literally, they have had zero sleep. They
mm,
are in that situation of, if I didn't come out of the house today, I would have not been in a very good place. And I'm like, So I love that as well. For me, it's the
Yeah.
facilitating of allowing, because remember, you can go to any sort of baby class with your baby, but you might not have anything
Mm.
in common with these mums. Whereas
Yeah.
the mums that come to my class, not only have they had a baby, but they're obviously all into one thing, which is exercise. They are
Mm.
into making themselves feel better about themselves. So suddenly they've already got this common ground, which is why I think we've ended up with a community of mums who, honestly, I think my first question to everybody when they come in the class, I'm like, right, who's in the no sleep club today? And it's mad how that just ricochets then off into literally women venting about, how their husbands do bugger all, how they've had no, it ends up being this literally,
Yeah.
but that as well is such an important thing. Like, women have to
Yeah.
be able to offload, and to also realize that it's not just you feeling like that. Like,
Yeah.
all mums feel like that at some point. Um, so it's a really nice, it's a
Oh, that
really
sounds
nice
lovely.
community. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Awesome. So yeah, have you got any kind of books or anything that you'd recommend? Anything that you've found useful before?
Not really. I think the biggest thing for me, I'm not really a reader. Unfortunately,
Okay.
my reading is very limited.
That's all
I
right.
think I think the biggest thing is just, unfortunately, is just kind of stop following mums on social media who are 21 years old and have just had a baby, because of course they're going to snap back into the size that they were before. Whereas most people who I end up speaking to are over the age of 30, and I'm like, our bodies just don't work like that anymore.
Mm.
And A and B, none of us have that much money to be able to pay for a PT to live in our house and a cook to
Mm.
cook us, and
Mm.
again, I feel this, unfortunately, it's just one of those things where you just need to be a little bit smart and a little bit selfish, but in a good way. And kind of,
Mm.
I don't need to be watching this, and kind of,
Yeah.
maybe not following these people on social media that you kind of go, oh, I wish I looked like her. Yeah.
Yeah.
So does everybody
So
else.
it sounds like find your tribe, find your kind of group of
Yeah. Find your
support
tribe.
that's
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, because there's a lot of not helpful information out there as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. So if someone wants to get started or find out more about you and what you do, then where can they find you and how can
So
they
on
follow you? I'll put
Instagram,
all this in the show notes as well.
yeah, on Instagram, I'm as Coach Kai, so that's
Yeah.
really easy. So it's just Coach CEI. On the Mum and Me Fit classes, I think if you actually just type in Mum and Me Fit Cardiff in Google, it'll come up with everything. If you put in Coach Kai in Google, it'll come up with everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're probably the best two avenues. Um,
Okay.
I'm pretty good with replying to people as well. I'll try and make sure I message people. And yeah, I'll always take care of somebody who comes for the first time, because I get notified whether it's a first time mum as well. So
Oh.
yeah. So yeah.
Oh, it sounds really great what you're doing with people. Yeah,
Well,
I wish I'd had a class like that when.
aw,
So thank you so much for your time.
you're
It's
very
been
welcome.
great chatting with you. Really helpful information for people as well. Yeah, thank you so much. Have a
You're
great
very
day.
welcome, Celia. Thank you.
Thanks for listening today. Have a great day. Take care. Bye for now.